Hello, Scruff-Tords and one and all, welcome to the Warzone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And we're back. It took us a while, family stuff, work stuff, everything getting in the way. Eventually, I figured I would do a video last Thursday, but then the microphone acted up on me. And here we are, finally getting another video together, and we're gonna take a look at Kursk, obviously, and why the entire operation is well and truly Syrsky's masterpiece. Right, so Andrew Perpetua's map, and we have Kursk, and let's start off with what everyone's been talking about. Here is the fourth, and then we jump on to the fifth, and boom, you can see a lot of stuff happen. This is where Ukraine launched that assault towards the town here, whatever it is in English. And as we can see, they moved across the fields here. As you can see, columns of vehicles coming in from Syrsky, Perechnoye, and then they came up through here, followed this road and these fields. Here you can see they had a large smoke screen in place, and then they entered the two towns, and they are now contested. Moving to the sixth, this was updated 5 hours ago as of recording. You can see things are still happening, and Russian car destroyed, Russian shelling. So a lot of stuff is going on, and Ukraine is contesting this area. Is this part of something bigger? Who knows? We'll just gonna have to wait and see. It was clearly well planned, considering that you have these columns of vehicles. You just don't throw them out into the field without proper planning. So this was a planned assault on among higher ups. This wasn't a company commander that saw an opportunity and launched the assault. This was a coordinated effort. All the electronic jamming that took out Russian communications and Russian FPV drones and what have you also indicates that this was a well-planned attack. But if it's intended to push on beyond this point, I'm kind of skeptical. I think this is as far as Ukraine will go, actually. Because beyond this point, you have wide open fields, and then you have a substantial town here at Bolshoye Solatskoye. And I'll show you here. This is my map. If we zoom in, so basically, I haven't updated my own map yet, but here I've highlighted where Ukraine made the assault. They came down this way, pushed up here, followed this small road, covered these fields, and came into Berdin and Novosotsnitsky, whatever. And they are now holding this village, I believe, and contesting this one. And if we take a look, I mean, you can see wide open fields beyond these two towns or villages, and then this larger settlement of Bolshoye Solatskoye. I think it's going to be tough for Ukraine to move on. They've lost the element of surprise. This is probably a garrison town. I mean, it's close to the front line. This is where Russia will probably have soldiers rotated out from the front line, and then send new ones to the front, and back and forth. And this is also probably where they have a lot of equipment stored and what have you. So this is not an easy target for Ukraine. So going beyond this point here, I'm not sure we will see that happen. What I think might happen is that Ukraine might, if they are able, advance out here to this forest and push up to this town, Rozgrebli. If you take a look, we have a small valley full of cover, woods, tree lines, and what have you. Same thing going north. The villages kind of interconnect along the way here. Lots of cover. You have some villages up here. So what I think Ukraine is after with this operation here is to take the Russians by surprise as we've seen, and then secure this territory here, and in so doing securing all of this. And if we zoom in, I mean, you have wide open fields. It's difficult for Russia to come in from the south to contend the Ukrainians from the south across these wide open fields. Maybe Ukraine can make a push here from Kruglik into these woods. Doubtful. I mean, you have a lot of Russians down here that can prevent that from happening. But here, taking Berdin, Novotnitsky, these Russians are a bit isolated, as you can see. I mean, it's going to be difficult for Russia to send troops from Bolshoi Soldatskoye as well, right? These open fields make Russian vehicles easy targets for Ukrainian drones. And up here, it's difficult to move through as well, and not that many roads. You have River Sudja. These are marshes, basically. So Russia probably cannot send any reinforcements through here. This looks like bogs, marshes, and no fun territory at all. So by taking Berdin and Novosibirsk, these Russians are probably isolated, and if Ukraine can push into these woods, they are in a good position to later on threaten Russians down here and put pressure on Bolshoi Soldatskoye. So I think that is the goal of this operation, to take this small valley, as you can see here, that is full of these tiny villages, farmland and what have you, and yeah, basically force Russia to abandon all of this territory here, and so push in, secure the valley, and fortify. I think that is what's going to happen in the next coming days. And I mean, this is where Ukraine attacked. Look at that nice arrow. And I think the opportunity arose from Russia focusing so heavily on taking ground up here and down here, right? So all supplies and manpower went into these flanks and probably left this part of the battlefield slightly weakened, because all the resources went in here and here, and Ukraine saw an opportunity to advance on this valley right here. And I think that is what happened. As you can see here, hang on. So yeah, basically it. Ukraine saw an opportunity to strike here and secure this valley, like I said, because all Russian resources were going into this fight and going down here to this fight. And it just left the center weak. And Ukraine coordinated a surprise assault, amassed the vehicles they needed, and made sure they could take out the drones with electronic warfare, and launched a successful surprise attack. And we'll see if they can establish a presence in this valley here, like I said, and force the wrong color, but you get the idea. If they can force the Russians back from this entire region, and then they have this huge field that will defend them from the north, along with the river and the marshes here. And the real threat after that will be from Buryakovka and potential assault. But again, open fields, maybe the Russians can push into these valleys here. But my guess is that Ukraine will keep pushing out along these terrain features that offers cover from away from the wide open fields. But we'll see what happens. But my prediction essentially is, to repeat myself for the 100th time here, that Ukraine will grab something like this up to river here, and they will be happy with it. And it's a moral victory. I mean, they've been they've been pushed back for 4 months, and now they've made a successful counterattack, and if they can fortify this valley, it will be a big victory for morale's sake, and it will show Russian soldiers that they are still in the fight and that they can still take the fight to the enemy. Now, so is the Kursk operation a success? Well, let's be honest. The blue area here, everything within blue area is what Ukraine set out to control. They had three operational goals: grabbing Sucha, then moving north to grab Koronevo, and as they took Koronevo, Glushkovo County would be isolated, and then they would launch an assault from the south to grab Glushkovo and then link up all forces and hold this territory. Obviously, they failed in taking Koronevo, they failed in taking Glushkovo, and ever since Russia has been slowly but steadily forced Ukraine back. So, I mean, on an operational level, this has not been a success. There's just no way to describe it as such. There is one more level to it, though, and that is the strategic success. What has this incursion into Kursk achieved on the strategical level? Even if they have failed with the operational level here, they are still at the moment achieving massive strategical goals that are not unimportant. So, as we can read here, Russia has moved 60,000 military personnel to the Kursk region. 60,000 troops. And on top of that, Russia has lost 38,000 casualties in Kursk. And out of those 38,000, according to Ukraine, nearly 15,000 have been killed. So 60,000, and they have lost 38,000. That means 98,000 troops in total have been deployed to Kursk. Almost 100,000 troops. And nearly 40% of them have been casualties or have ended up as casualties. And 15,000 dead out of those 100,000. This is what Ukraine was after. These are the strategical goals that they are now achieving in Kursk. Because, I mean, imagine if Ukraine grabbed Koronevo, as was their plan, as well as Glushkovo. I mean, we've seen how Russia struggles in Chasiv Yar, in Toretsk, in Vovchansk, in all of these places with urban environments, especially urban environments where there's a river, and there's a river going straight through Koronevo, such as Vovchansk, Chasiv Yar. Had Ukraine grabbed Koronevo, I mean, Russia wouldn't still be fighting in Koronevo, more than likely. I mean, it's taken them forever to push through Toretsk, for instance. Same with Chasiv Yar and Vovchansk. So you see what Ukraine was after, grabbing these important towns. And the point was to draw Russians here into Kursk and move the war from Ukraine into Russia itself. And this, despite failing with 2 out of 3 objectives, they have still forced Russia to allocate 100,000 troops here. And Russia's lost nearly 40% of them as casualties. Imagine if Ukraine had grabbed Koronevo. So, I mean, you now realize why they tried this. You realize the strategical importance of this attempt by Ukraine. And they were so damn close. They were right outside of Koronevo, in the outskirts. They were so close to pushing in to this town. But I guess the Russians figured out what was going on and fortified this place like hell and managed to hold the line and then launch their famous counterattack down to Snagost and then towards Yubimovka. But this is, you clearly see why Ukraine did this, and you realize how effective this incursion had been had Ukraine grabbed Koronevo and later on even Glushkovo. As we can see here, according to Zelensky, he said that one of Ukraine's offensive goals was to draw Russian troops into the area. According to Zelensky, at the time of the writing of this article, in September, I believe this was from, this tactic has been somewhat successful as Russian forces have been relocated from other regions where the Ukrainian army struggles to maintain defense. So they pushed in to Kursk, hoping to grab these 3 towns that would force Russia to spend 6 to 8 months fighting in these towns, individual towns, to liberate them, right? To draw Russians to Kursk. And with only having achieved 1 out of 3 objectives, Ukraine has forced Russia to allocate 100,000 troops to Kursk, away from Ukraine. Imagine if they had taken Koronevo and Glushkovo. They could have essentially moved greater part of the war away from Ukraine into Russia itself. And this operation is so crucial, and it is really a masterpiece by Syrsky. Forcing 100,000 Russians to fight here instead of within Ukraine. 40% of them casualties, 15,000 killed inside of Russia instead of in Ukraine. I mean, and that is only holding Sudzha. Now when they are pushing out here, taking the opportunity to take this valley, it makes Russia look like a fool. Russia has struggled for 5 months. 5 months. We should not forget that Russia struggled here for 5 months to throw Ukraine out of Russia, right? And if Ukraine can now push out and reclaim territory or take over more territory and force the Russians back, it's gonna put political pressure on the Russian generals. The people in Moscow, they can't tolerate this. And this will put political pressure and force the generals to allocate more and more manpower to deal with this incursion. Because you can't have Ukrainians grabbing more territory. They must be pushed back. But now they are forcing Russia back in this area here. It's going to put political pressure on the generals. They are being ridiculed by the Ukrainians. And more resources will be allocated to Kursk away from Ukraine. So the operation will meet more strategical goals, even if they fail with 2 out of 3 operational objectives. So this is a masterpiece by Syrsky. Despite not reaching all objectives, it is having a tremendous effect on the war itself. And masterclass. Truly masterclass. And I mean, what is it? Russia has managed to liberate 600 to 700 square kilometers between Koronevo and the current lines, something like that. 650 square kilometers in 5 months. 100,000 troops committed, 15,000 dead, right? 5 months, this area. So let's, we can actually do this. Hang on. Let's check this out. Which one is it? Not you. Here we go. Sorry for that. Let's go from here, down to here, something like that. And they were up here. No, they were here. There was something like this, right? That is 300. Well, there were territory down here as well, and territory over here at Glushkovo. But this is 318 square kilometers. So let's go with 600 square kilometers. Okay. I'm gonna show you what the Russians have achieved in 5 months. This It's Europe, as you can see. Here you have a tiny, tiny country called Luxembourg. Let's see, 600 square kilometers. I wonder... yeah, this is 1,200 square kilometers, so I guess we're gonna have to adjust. No. We're gonna have to adjust this. This is 800. Russia, what are you doing? Here we go. 620. Okay, 620 square kilometers. That's the northern third quarter of Luxembourg. This tiny, tiny country in the middle of Europe. That is what Russia has achieved in 5 months within Russia itself. Right? That's the achievement so far. 5 months, 100,000 troops, 15,000 dead, and they have, conquered a third of Luxembourg within Russia. I mean, that's kind of sad and pathetic, isn't it? So, what have we seen in Kursk so far? Well, Russian achievements. 5 months without liberating Kursk. Russia has deployed 100,000 troops, out of which 38% are casualties and 15% have been killed in action. And Russia has achieved the incredible feat of occupying basically a third of Luxembourg in 5 months with 100,000 troops within Russia itself. Ukraine, their achievements, well, 1 out of 3 operational objectives. You might say that's not good at all. But on the other hand, they have held for 5 months within Russia with only 1 out of 3 operational objectives. And with only 1 out of 3 operational objectives, they are achieving strategical goals. 100,000 troops moved from Ukraine to Russia, and a whole lot of casualties inflicted on the Russians in Russia instead of within Ukraine. And Ukraine has deployed some 20,000 troops to Kursk at the moment, and they are also counterattacking. So with 20,000 troops against roughly 60,000 Russians, they are now counterattacking. So I mean, and that is with 1 out of 3 operational objectives achieved. Now the Vatniks, they're gonna go apeshit loco. Oh, we don't know how many Ukraine has lost. Ukraine has lost 100,000 troops. No, but they have 20,000 roughly troops in Kursk, and they went in with roughly 20,000. So let's give them catastrophic casualty figures, 50%. Remember, Russia has lost 38, so we're gonna give Ukraine 50. That's 10,000 troops when they went in with 20. And they have to replace them with another 10. So 30,000 in total have been deployed to Kursk of the Ukrainians, 100,000 troops in total for the Russians. And out of these 10,000 casualties, maybe 1 to 2,000 dead. Compare that to 15,000 for the Russians. So, yeah, I mean, it's a success. It is a Ukrainian success, no matter how you twist and turn it. And Syrsky took the Russians with their pants down, and they have ridiculed the Russians. And I am pretty confident that the politicians and Putin in Moscow are fuming with rage that they can't do anything about it, and especially now that Ukraine is actually pushing out and taking the fight to the Russians once more in Kursk. And I think with the Russian, or the Ukrainian rather, counterattack these days, it shows that Ukraine, they're intent on staying in Kursk. They're not leaving anytime soon, and they will keep fighting in Russia for as long as possible to force Russia to allocate even more troops. I mean, they're probably figuring, how can we force Russia to allocate another 100,000 to Kursk, away from Ukraine, to move the war into Russia away from Ukraine. And the only way to do that is to be on the offensive, to defensively inflict incredible casualties on the Russians, and also offensively push them back and force political decisions that forces the Russian generals to move more and more manpower out of desperation to handle the Kursk situation. And so, I mean, all on all combined, I think this is well and truly Syrsky's masterpiece. And I was about to end the video when I realized I totally forgot to mention this in the entire video. Kursk, and way over here, Glishkov, and this is where Ukraine tried to push in earlier towards Veseloy. There's reports of activity surrounding the town of Tetkino. We have Ukrainian activity over here. If that will amount to something, and if that will show us any future incursions in this area, I don't know, but it's been reported that Ukraine is making moves in and around Tetkino as well, not just over here. They're also trying to move in from Leonodovo towards Novaivanovka. We haven't really seen anything come of that yet. So the big move is this here at Berdin. But keep in mind, we may see something happen at Tetkino as well in the coming days. So I think that's the end of the video. That's going to have to be it. So yeah, like I've said for months and months, this operation would draw Russian resources like crazy to Kursk, and well, according to the Ukrainians at least, it appears to be happening. They appear to be inflicting massive casualties on the Russians, and despite not reaching all operational objectives, it is a success, and they are achieving vital strategical goals in Kursk. So yeah, truly, Syrsky, this will be the thing Syrsky will be remembered for, and this operation, this incursion, will be studied for many years to come. I have no doubts about that. So, as always, go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.